So I'm up on stage with my back to the audience, still setting up, when I realise that the rest of the band have started without me. Not the beginning that I was looking for. And to start things off, yes, it really did throw me, but I was able to turn things around, play pretty well, thoroughly enjoy the experience, although this bad start had happened and other things kept going wrong, for want of a better word, throughout. In this video, I'm going to tell you how I did that. And this same approach really works for my students as well, getting them playing their best and enjoying their music, whatever the situation. Now, this all happened at a jam session I was at a few weeks ago. And in that situation, you never quite know what's going to happen. That's kind of the point of the jam sessions. And sure enough, on the first tune, I got up there and the trumpet player picked a tune to play that I had never played before. I knew it, I knew how it went, but I'd never played it. And it was tricky and it was fast. So that's a real challenge. Even on top of this fact that everyone, as I said, had actually started playing before I was even ready. So that's a really tough one. Now, I got a second tune to play as well, so thinking, well, that might be better, particularly since in this case, I get to choose the tune. So that was all good. I was set to go, happy with the tune that I'd chosen, when the piano player who'd just got up suddenly said, well, I don't know this. We're going to play something else instead. And he picked Autumn Leaves, which should be fine, although it's not one that I know so well, except that he started playing it in a different key without actually bothering to tell me first. So that was a fun introduction as well. And he played it in a very particular way. He was very much all about how he wanted to play it. So again, struggling with that as the band was there to try and have to fit in around him rather than having any chance to do things the way that I had hoped, that I had wanted. So that's the situation I was in. And it seems like that was the issue, because all these things are happening and you can't deal with them. You know, if you can't deal with them, well, what can you do? But actually, there's always a lot more leeway than you think. And it wasn't the situation that was the issue. It was my reactions, my emotions to it that was the problem. So here are some of the things that started creeping into my mind. As we started playing, I was aware of what the other musicians were doing. I was thinking that the bass player was giving me funny looks. Was he judging me, perhaps? I was aware that the trumpet player was playing really well. So then I could allow that to heap some pressure on me, to make me think, well, I've got to live up to that. I've got to somehow come up to that standard. I was thinking, oh my goodness, I don't know what I'm doing. Here's this tune that I don't know, and it's really fast. I'm out of my depth here. And again, that's a judgment. And then there were some of the things that were totally within my control. So we played Autumn Leaves second, and that's a tune that pretty much all jazz players know, and I do kind of know it, but I didn't know it that well. But I didn't want to admit to anyone else that I didn't know it that well, and so I decided to play it purely from memory without having the music, particularly since, as it turned out, to be in a different key. So that was an option that I could have done differently. And interestingly enough, this set of unhelpful reactions, me reacting to the situation, carried on even after I'd finished playing my two tunes, because the next guitar player who got up, a friend of mine, actually got to play two of the tunes that I had specifically wanted to play on. So there was I, sitting in the audience by now, and really tempted into thinking, oh, that's so unfair. I got all the hard stuff. I got all the things that went wrong. And then this other guy's got up and he's got exactly what I wanted. So it's very easy for me to kind of flip over into a victim mode and focus on the negatives rather than on the positives. And even when you get those reactions, it's not that immediate reaction that's the problem. It's usually when you hang on to it and you make it mean something, and you give it some validity, because these thoughts can pop up in your mind the whole time, and you're free to just go, well, you know what, that's just a thought, I don't have to accept it. But the ones that are really catching me out are when I get hit by a whole barrage of shoulds, thinking, I should do this, I should know that, should. And in particular, it's things like thinking, I should be able to play over any jazz tune, no matter whether I've played it before or how difficult it is or how fast it is. And that's what got me in trouble with that first tune, because actually, is that definite? No, it's a tricky thing. Maybe I should just be, or I could be just content with playing okay over it, with making my way through and not getting everything quite the way that I'd like. But it's really easy for my brain to go, oh, you should be able to do this. And all of a sudden, I'm feeling bad if I don't, or trying to do too much. And again, with Autumn Leaves, it's thinking, oh, I should know how to play this from memory. And that's what got me into trouble there, from going along with this feeling that I should be able to do it, rather than accepting, well, perhaps, I don't know it very well. I'm going to use the music. And then when you start playing things and you think it's just not going perhaps as well as I'd like, it's very easy to get into thinking, well, I should play perfectly every time. I should be great every time I get up on stage. Really easy for this to come into our minds, but actually when you look at it, totally not the case. It's unrealistic. Most people just don't do that. And it's totally fine to have a few bars or a couple of choruses where you're not playing that great, even make a few mistakes, and you can perhaps get back into it later, start warming up, start playing better as the tune goes on. But that's not really going to happen if your very first reaction is thinking, oh, I should be better than this is all going wrong. That's when you can kind of spiral downhill, and that's when your thinking gets in the way of an issue that cropped up that wasn't perhaps such a big deal at the start, but you're thinking about how things should be, how they ought to be, and not accepting how they are can get in the way of things. Do you recognize that feeling where you feel like you should be able to do something, even if, when you look at it logically, that's actually not realistic? If so, let me know by just typing should in the comments below. And the other thing that I was doing there was comparing myself to others. You'll remember I was thinking, wow, that trumpet player is playing really well. Now, the first thing is that this is not helpful in itself. As you can kind of see from that, it can put me in a defensive attitude, thinking, oh, maybe I'm just not good enough. Or maybe it will push me to try too hard for things that I can't do to try and reach that level. So even if that is the case, he's playing better than me. Really not helpful to think about that, just much more helpful to focus on what I'm doing, stick with my music, do that well. But the flip side is, when we look at other people, we tend to see the things that we can't do so well and forget about all the things that actually we're great at and other people aren't so good at. So me looking at other people going, wow, they're so great, is almost certainly meaning that I'm forgetting about half the things that I'm doing that just seem normal to me, that those other people would turn around and look at me and go, wow, that's really great too. And if you'd like more help with this, then check out my video on how to stop comparing yourself to other musicians. So the question then is, how did I turn all this around? And there's a couple of things here, but the first part of it is awareness. Just to be aware that I was thinking all these things, that all these issues were going through my brain, causing emotions, causing reactions, rather than just feeling, this is the situation, it's all terrible, whatever. Break it down into, okay, I'm aware that the bass player is looking at me and I'm putting a judgment on that maybe he's thinking strange things. And I'm aware that I'm thinking about how well the trumpet player is playing. I'm aware that I'm thinking, oh, I wish I wasn't in this situation with playing the difficult tunes, or just been about to play the tune that I wanted to, and someone comes and calls a different tune and it's in the wrong key and I didn't know, and all those sorts of things. So I could just be reacting to them, feeling them as emotions and having my playing sucked down. But the first thing is to just be aware that these things are happening. These thoughts are going through your mind. And once you're aware of it, then you have the chance to work with it. And the way to do that is really to get into it and start to think, well, is this true? So is it true that the bass player is judging me because of the way he's looking at me? Who knows, actually? Maybe yes, maybe no, but my brain leaps to the conclusion yes. But all I know is that he's looking at me. Maybe he's checking to see how I'm playing, to make sure he's completely in time with me. Maybe that expression on his face is how he always looks. It's not a guy that I knew before. So there's some big assumptions there. Then there are all those shoulds that I was talking about. I should know how to play Autumn Leaves from heart. Is that necessarily true? What if I'd just chosen it's not important to me and I haven't put the time in, which is what I'd done? No longer really true. I'm just kind of feeling some peer pressure on that. Thinking, oh, I should be able to play perfectly every time. When I stop and look at it, turns out that that's crazy. That's just not possible. So some of those things are things that I can work on in the moment, I can grab and deal with. Some of them take a bit of a longer time. Very easy for me logically to say, well, of course it's not possible for me to play perfectly every time, but that sort of feeling is very strong in there. So it's one that I have to kind of come back to each time I get up in a performance situation like this. And the first time, way back, I would probably notice that and go, okay, that's not true, doesn't change my feelings at all, but just keep working on it over time. And this time around, for example, didn't get rid of it completely, but because I've seen it come up time and time again, because I've realized, okay, this is not actually true, this is not a helpful belief for me, it's not true, time and time again, it gets easier for me to step away with it. It's not perfect, like you've seen, these things still come up, they still affect me, but the more that I work with them, the more I've got a chance to do something different, to think something different. And finally, it's about just really recognizing the reality of the situation and being kind to myself. Because when you look at it, it was a difficult situation. It's not one to expect I'm going to do everything exactly the way I want, because I've been given first up a tune that I had never played before. It's a fast tune. The band had started before I was even ready and had a chance to check how I was sounding and get in with it. That's a difficult situation. What are the chances that I'm going to give my best performance in those circumstances? Pretty low. And again, playing a tune that I wasn't ready for, wasn't expecting, and in a totally different key, which I only found out once people started playing for the second tune, that's really difficult. So once I realised, okay, this was a difficult situation, perhaps my expectations should be lower, and cut myself some slack, be a little bit kind to myself, that makes a big difference to how I react. And the interesting thing for me is what happened afterwards, which really seemed to reinforce all this. So people came up to me afterwards to say that they really enjoyed my playing. And I genuinely think they meant it. So I was there getting so worked up about the fact that the first tune was fast and I didn't know it, and I was unexpected with the key in the second tune and all this, and thinking, oh, I'm not dealing with it well, I'm not playing that well. But that's not what people thought. And actually, two of the people who said that to me were the bass player and the trumpet player. And again, I think they meant it. So there was I wondering, is the bass player giving me funny looks? Wow, that trumpet player's playing so well. But they thought I was fine. So it shows you how your emotions in the moment can be very different from what's actually happening. And almost a bigger thing for me was the fact that I came off stage and I was almost caught up in all this, oh, this was terrible, it's ruined the night, all that sort of stuff thinking. And I'm really glad that I got myself out of that pretty quickly. There have been times in the past when I could have stayed with that for hours, but I did challenge it. I changed it up, and I got to thinking, actually, no, it was fine. Tricky situations, I did all right. And I was able to enjoy the rest of the evening, which was great because there was some lovely music being played. But had I stuck in that, getting frustrated with all the things that had come up, the difficulties I'd had to face, the things that I hadn't dealt with so well, I would have just had those going round and round in my head all the night, and I would have missed listening to this beautiful music. So it's not just about the performance on stage for me, it's about how much am I enjoying everything around that, and freeing myself up from getting so judgmental, from so burdening myself down with feeling I should be able to do stuff. That really helps. So to wrap up, I think this really shows the importance of awareness. You've got to be aware of this stuff in the first place to allow yourself to do that second step, which is to just pause and formulate a response rather than just having an instinctive reaction, which is locked down and you can't change it. And the final thing for me is it's a reminder of how much this is ongoing work. Because I've been dealing with all this stuff for years. I've done really well with a lot of this stuff for years. I've put a whole load of work in, and I still get hit with these issues from time to time, depending on the situation, depending on whether I'm having a good day or a bad day, depending on just what thoughts pop into my mind. It's not like I've done the work and all of a sudden they don't come anymore. I'm better at dealing with them when they do, but they still crop up. So it's an ongoing journey, and no one that I know has ever got this perfect and doesn't have to put in the time. And if you'd like some help with dealing with these issues, then check out my course, Unlock Your Performance. It goes deep into the perceptions that we have of playing music and exercises that you can use to change them. I'll put a link in the description below. I've been Mark Morley-Fletcher. Thanks so much for watching. Please click below to subscribe if you haven't done so already. And while you're down there, why not hit the share button to pass this video on to other musicians? Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.